It's the big fellows. We're moving to the O-line, D-line for the Senior Bowl stock report on today's Renner Ranks.
This is Renner Ranks, the ultimate NFL ranking show. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into today's episode of Renner Ranks, your go-to daily ranks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a special shout out to those everydayers out there. Don't forget, subscribe, follow for free on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. I, of course, am Mike Renner, NFL draft analyst at large. I think I say now. I don't really have a home where my draft rankings are. Hopefully, at some point, we will figure that out. But a big TBD at the moment. And today's podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at LinkedInjobs.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. Post your job for free. Still going through the Senior Bowl. Still grinding the tape. I've actually ground the tape already. I've watched all these guys. But yesterday we did skill positions. Today we're doing O-line, D-line. Tomorrow we're doing back seven. Then we'll get to maybe a little Super Bowl preview. I don't know. I don't think you guys really want any more Super Bowl preview from me. So we'll probably just head to more draft content later in the week. But still got to review some Senior Bowl stuff. The risers and the fallers. Let's get into it. Let's get to the O-line. We'll start with offensive tackles here, where no one rose more in my eyes than Christian Jones, the offensive tackle from Texas. The guy put on a show in the one-on-one. So some measurables here. 6'5", 318 pounds, 34 7/8 inch arms, and 10 3/8 inch hands. Put together how you want an offensive tackle to be put together. Those are box-ticking numbers. And he's a 4-year starter at Texas, 3 years at right tackle, 1 year at left tackle. This past year was a right tackle. What I didn't know, though, about his tape is that he only started playing football as a junior in high school. After I watched him at the Senior Bowl, I'm like, who, is this guy? I watched him cursorily. Is that a word? I watched him briefly prior to the Senior Bowl. Thought, probably more of a day 3 type of guy from what I saw at the Senior Bowl. Admittedly, not that. Looked like one of the best offensive tackles in attendance. Outplayed some of the guys getting first round buzz, in my opinion. And so this one warrants a rewatch, going back through his tape, maybe to some previous years as well, seeing where he's improved, because what I loved were his feet. And now, again, I said he didn't play football until his junior year of high school. He was a soccer player prior to that. 6'5", 318 is not usually what I think of when I think of a soccer player, but you see it with his movement skills. And if you're going to have a guy play any other sport to then play offensive tackle, I mean, I guess probably basketball is probably a little bit better, but soccer is the movement skill. It's the feet that it takes to mirror 250-pounders that run 4.4s, right? So I was impressed with what he did there. He's so solidly built. I don't think he's necessarily the explosive athlete that others are in this tackle class. Like, he's not impressive in that regard, in terms of pure high-end capabilities, but more just the way he moves, the fluidity, how easy he changes directions, how easy he gets out of his stance. I think there's a lot to work with here. And the fact that, again, hasn't played, I guess, a ton of football, a 6-year guy, though, so he was in college for a long time, but you've seen him get a lot better in limited time with the game, that I'm excited about where this guy could push. So easily one of the biggest risers throughout the week of Senior Bowl practice. Another guy who's moving up my board, who I was hesitant to put it in the first round conversation going into the Senior Bowl, but I think he firmly played his way there, and it's Tyler Guyton, the Oklahoma tackle. And now I put him there in first round mocks and whatnot. I figured he was probably going to go there, but I just didn't have that kind of grade on him yet myself personally. We'll see when all is said and done, but I think he very well may end up there, because at 6'7", 328 pounds with 34 1/4 inch arms, there aren't too many guys carrying that much weight as easily as he does. I mean, he is svelte at that size. I think Tyron Smith, Cowboys tackle, is the GOAT in terms of 300 plus pounders builds. Like Tyron Smith looks like he could play, he almost looks like a wide receiver that just kept getting bigger, right? Like it just is so densely packed on his frame. There's no excess there whatsoever. With Tyler getting to 328, there's not a lot of excess. He's a trim 328, and it shows in how explosive he is, how much he just glides across the football field, glides out of his stance. His quick set, jump set needed a little bit of work. That's where he lost a couple times throughout the one-on-ones. But, man, when he gets his hands on guys, powerful upper body, easy anchor, definitely a guy that offensive line coaches at the next level are just going to say, let me get my hands on him. I got this. Whatever's wrong with him, we'll fix, and we'll have an elite tackle at the next level. So he looked the part down in Mobile. Onto the stock downside. First guy I'm going to mention is more of like a personal stock down, and it's Arizona's Jordan Morgan. It's because I was really high on him. I had him as top 25 player heading the Senior Bowl. Comes in first. The weigh-in is lighter than expected at 6'5", 312. He was listed at 325 for Arizona. Arms under the 33-inch threshold at 32 7/8 inch. Not untenable by any means. There are multiple starters around the NFL at that arm length, but something that is likely to, for certain teams, for certain offensive line coaches, get you kicked inside right away. They won't even deal with guys that are below that threshold. So unfortunate for him. And then in the one-on-ones, I just expected him to be a little crisper. Like on tape, I thought he was a high-end pass protector, and despite that arm length, could still get the job done. And when you do have shorter arms, you have to use them well, right? When you have the 36-inch arms, you have a lot of leeway in terms of your timing, in terms of your placement. When you don't have that, you can't have them wide and leave your chest exposed. You can't rely on being able to recover after the fact consistently. And I just thought I saw that a little too much on his tape. And now the thing I love about him, and that we still saw there, was he won't lose ugly. He's got great balance. He fights really well to recover blocks. But I just think after watching him there, it's more likely now in my mind's eye. Yikes. I don't know why I said that. My mind's eye. That he'll be a guard at the next level. And so top 25 pick on a guard, and I think he could be a very good guard. But it just may knock him down my board a bit. The other one who I thought really struggled there that I had high expectations for, had him as a top 100 player going into the week, is Javon Foster, the Missouri tackle. I worry about what I just said about being able to recover blocks. I worry about that with Javon Foster. He gets top heavy, slips off blocks, and when he slips off blocks, he goes head out over his knees, falling towards the ground. No recourse. It's over. And now build-wise, 6'5", 309, 35-inch arms, it's there. He's a tackle. But to me, from watching him, I think he's developmental swing tackle that I'm not sure I project him as a starter anymore. Top 100 pick a tackle. You think it's a guy that could probably develop into a starter. To me, I think he's going to be slipping out of my top 100 and projecting more towards like a pure developmental grade on him. So unfortunate there. A couple guys worth mentioning that have been getting buzz that I talked about that I don't think rose nor fell with their performance over the course of the week. And that's Taliese Fuaga, the Oregon State offensive tackle, and Patrick Paul, the Houston offensive tackle. Paul came in, man, over 36-inch arms, 6'7". The guy is a mammoth, just blocks out the sun. And I thought his anchor got exposed a touch. I think he needs to get stronger in that regard, and that could be a weak link of his at that height. But I still think he has enough to be a plus pass protector at the next level. And then Fuaga, lost a few reps. It wasn't dominant in pass pro by any means. I didn't expect him to be dominant in pass pro. That's not why I'm drafting him where I'm drafting him. You're doing that because his work in the run game. He still looked like a man amongst boys from a pure physicality perspective down there in Mobile. All right, before we get to the O-line here, interior O-line. Today's podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals where you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time nor the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2, or 3, or eat one. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, but also FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Interior offensive line, where Jackson, Powers, Johnson, the Oregon center, came, saw, and conquered. That was one of the best Senior Bowl performances I've ever seen. I firmly am going to have him as a top 25 player on my board. He's going to be right up there with Frank Ragnow and Tyler Linderbaum for the highest grades I've given to a center prospect since starting this back in 2015. So, yeah, good Senior Bowl for the man. 6'3", 334 pounds, 32 and an eighth inch arms. Had only about one bad rep in the one-on-ones, and it wasn't even like bad. It was just that he probably held. The way he moves at that size is very impressive, and that's a big center. I almost wanted to curse there because that's such a big center, 334 pounds, and it shows, man. I mean, for him to be able to move as easily as he does and then just manhandle opposing DTs, that guy's NFL ready. I just don't know how he didn't. I still don't know how he didn't start early in his career. Wild for a center is that good, but hey, better late than never. All right, other guy who really dominated, who is going to end up as top 50 player on my board, it's Christian Haynes, UConn guard. Now, he had some bad reps at center. If you're drafting him, I wouldn't switch positions. He's been right guard his whole career. I'd keep him at right guard. He looked awesome there at right guard. 6'2", 318, 33 and 7/8 inch arms. That's how you put together a guard. Guy's built like an Ewok, man. Oof. He was very impressive, whether it's, wide runs, whether it's climbing to the second level, his location ability, and then his anchor looked way better than I even expected, having watched him on tape. So really a lot to like, and truthfully, not a lot to dislike. That's why, again, don't have a lot of top 50 guards in the history of my draft boards. Christian Haynes will be one of them. So if you like to get your guards out in space, not a pure gap scheme, not a pure movement scheme, he is the man for you in this class. Another player who I was impressed with, who I was hoping would get a shot at tackle, but really only played guard over the course of the week, Dominic Puni, Kansas. He played tackle this past year, but played guard in the past. And another guy who looked strong, 6'4", 323, 33 and 3/4 inch arms, 10-inch hands. His anchor was great. I raved about his mirroring ability back at Kansas. That's why I thought he could stay at tackle. But obviously the NFL disagrees with me. He played most of his time in the interior, but I think he's going to be a darn good guard at the next level. I think he's firmly in the second round range at guard. Now, all those guys I was pretty high on going into this. Another guy, last one here on the stock up for interior offensive line that I wasn't necessarily, Tanner Bordolini, the Wisconsin center. After the top group of centers, which is Jackson Powers-Johnson and Zach Frazier from West Virginia, the center three is going to come down to him and Cedric Van Pran, in my opinion. Those are, I didn't have him in that regard heading into this week, but man, was I impressed with his hands and pass protection. The guy fights, the guy strains. He was quick to reset. And really, like in the one-on-ones, people are raving about, the guys who look the part more. He wasn't losing, though, Bortolini. It wasn't necessarily as pretty as some of the other guys, as dominant as some of the other guys. But quick feet, active hands, not a lot to dislike besides, 6'3", 305, shorter arms, 31 5/8. Physically, that was the worry, like on tape, is like, what's it going to look like at the next level? Well, he's going against NFL players and still holding his own. So I liked what I saw from him on tape. Liked what I saw from him on tape. Stock down on the interior office line. Truly among the guys who were getting some semblance of hype, none. Now, there were other guys in this class that didn't look good that I'm not going to name because they weren't prospects really, to begin with, and don't want to go, kicking guys while they're down, right? That's not what we're here for. So let's just move on to the defensive tackle class, where I got 2 stock ups, 2 stock downs. Truly wasn't a great defensive tackle class coming in to this week, but the one who I think I actually highlighted on the preview pod, or at least in the preview article that doesn't exist anymore on themessenger.com, was Gabe Hall, the Baylor defensive tackle, who I knew was going to come into the week and look the part. He's 6'5", 290, 7-foot wingspan. Tools are there. But on tape, the play speed was slower than his testing speed. And that's always a worry for me. But then at the Senior Bowl, the play speed was a different level. It looked like a man had been unleashed, especially in the one-on-ones, where his swim move was deadly. His first step was deadly and just powerful at that size. Man's got 3-4 defensive end written all over him. He's going to be coveted by teams that have that sort of role on their defensive line that like to play, head up over tackles, inside shade over tackles, those sort of things. So still probably a day 3 guy, but much more intrigued now after what I saw from him at the Senior Bowl. And again, he was Bruce Feldman's Freaks List guy way back when being last fall. All right, the other DT that I'll highlight, the Hall brothers, Michael Hall Jr., the Ohio State defensive tackle. And now he's undersized, right? He's 6'2", 280, 33 1/4 inch arms. That's probably solid. Needs to obviously get bigger. You saw that on tape at Ohio State. Was surprising that he came out. And even in the run game, he can get moved and going to have to be a one-gap guy if you're really playing him next year on rundowns. I think he can be a sub-package rusher at minimum out the gate. What I saw from him at the Senior Bowl, even though he's a third-year guy, was very quick feet, agile as can be. I mean, he probably had the most impressive reps of any DT there in terms of just one move he's by you. He has that quickness that it takes to impact the passing game at a high level. So great starting point, knows how to use his hands. Lots of he's just still got to get a lot stronger and really probably only a 3 tech. Maybe you could play it out in the edge for you a little bit if you really want to try him out there. But I do think that, some shrewd team will probably take him somewhere in the 3rd round and in a few years have themselves an impact interior rusher. On the stock downside of things, unfortunately, a couple of guys came in with some itty bitty T-Rex arms and both did not have great weeks, I'll say. The one guy, maybe I'm being a little harsh, is Braden Fiske, the Florida State defensive tackle, but he came in almost 6'4", so just a shade, I believe an 1/8 of an inch under 6'4", and 31 inch arms and 9 1/4 inch hands. So smallish hands for a DT, very small arms for a DT, but then he's tall. And to me, that's a really bad combo. That's like a Gervon Dexter. That's like Aiden Hutchinson. When you're tall with short arms, that's almost worse than being short with short arms, because then and I'm saying for the running game, what you worry about with guys with short arms is that when they're engaged with a block, that the opposing offensive lineman can keep their arms at bay, right? And that they can't get that first contact. And so then they'll struggle to separate off of blocks and then make plays on ball carriers. And so You saw that in the running game, whether it was the actual game or the week of practices. And then you also saw him struggle to gain leverage because he doesn't have it naturally with his height. He's a little taller than a lot of the offensive linemen he's going against on the interior. And so that's just a recipe for a guy that kind of almost has to be a one-gapper in the running game. And that's where his best plays are, is when he could just penetrate upfield. But that's not, it's not a lot of run defenses nowadays. With light boxes, you can't just have one guy abandoning his gap and trying to penetrate upfield. And if you do, that guy better be a stud, right? That better be Aaron Donald doing it. You're not going to give Braden Fiskey, a third rounder, your freedom to do that. So I do think there's still a good amount to like, but I think he may drop out of the top 100 for me. His best reps came against one of the guys who I won't mention that was one of the interior linemen that got clowned throughout the entire week. So there was just, I love the effort, love the explosiveness, but that physical, that profile combined with the fact that he's not like a technician necessarily, he's more of an effort rusher, I just worry about. Then the other guy, Tyler Davis, Clemson defensive tackle, came in with even shorter arms, 30 3/4 inch arms. And he was just a non-factor as a pass rusher. I still think he, with his squatty body, can be kind of a block eater in the running game. I think he still make kind of an impact in that regard, but I just don't see pass rushing potential with that arm length, without the lateral agility to play around blocks. So there's just another guy that's probably not going to finish in my top 100. Devondre Sweat was obviously the highlight, the big name on the DT class. I thought he ticked the box. I think he's firmly going to be in that 25 to 40 range on my final draft board, depending on how the rest of his pre-draft process goes. Liked what I saw from him on tape at Texas this year. Thought he was, he did physically overmatch pretty much all the offensive linemen he was going against over the course of the week. Wasn't necessarily, killing dudes by any means, and that's why I didn't put him as a riser, but thought he definitely got the job done. All right, before we get to the pass rushers, today's podcast is brought to you by DoorDash. Why root for your team on an empty stomach? Order on DoorDash and save on football watch party favorites. Order pizza, wings, soda, burgers, or even just buns on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing the game. All your favorite restaurants and stores from retail to grocery are on the app, so you can shop everything you need to get game day ready. Get prepared before game day. Stock up on your favorite apps and order all your tailgate gear on DoorDash. Then get ready to watch your team win. You get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. That's 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKed23. Subject to change. Terms apply. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, DEs, edges, whatever you want to call them. Let's do some stock ups. First one, Marshawn Kneeland, the Western Michigan edge. I was impressed with the man. A guy that this is kind of traditionally the event is made for, right? The guys who haven't faced NFL offensive tackles. How are they going to fare against NFL offensive tackles? Marshawn Kneeland, well, he fared pretty darn well. First off, he won the weigh-in. 6'3", 268 with 34-inch arms is a great build for an edge. I love that style of edge. It's going to be shorter than all the tackles he goes against, right? Like, so he has the innate leverage in those leverage battles. He will be the low man if he wants to be, right? And his stance, that was the other thing I loved, his flexibility at that size. you could see it in his stance. He got into a 4-point. And if a guy gets into a 4-point stance, and I can't like do it right here for you with how this camera is, but you know what I'm talking about when like the shoulders are scraping the ground, the old Jason Babin stance. That's a round grade bump for me when I see that on tape. Guys that can do that, guys that do that effectively. 1 round grade. And so love that from him. But then 34-inch arms. So 6'3", 268, 34-inch arms. So leverage, length, size, some power behind him. And then he's a high motor guy too, rushing the passer. A guy that was really never done. Wasn't a one move and then, I didn't hit it. That's it. You locked me up. No, he wanted to get to opposing quarterbacks. So I think he's going to finish as top 50 guy for me. I know I've seen him top 50 other places, but that was a stamp type of performance where it's like, yeah, what I put on tape here at Western Michigan is for real. Another guy what he put on tape over the course of this past season was for real is Darius Robinson, the Missouri edge, who, some background on him, played interior for the most of his career at Missouri. Has seen playing time in 4 years now. His first 3 years exclusively on the interior. Kicks out to the edge this past fall, has his best year by far. And they obviously played mostly edge at the Senior Bowl, and that's where I like him. 6'5", 286, and that's obviously big for an edge, but he can be your strong side edge, the guy that's kind of playing right shoulder, outside shoulder of a tackle, head up over tight ends, and just going to town in the run game. 34 and 3/4-inch arms, 10.5-inch hands. I didn't have him top 50 going in. He's going to be top 50. Borderline top 30 performance with how dominant he was. He was that dude along the defensive line there. If anyone really put on a show, and Latu was there, and Robinson had a better week than him. And Latu's a top 15 to 20 player on most boards that you'll see. UCLA defensive end. So, man amongst boys. I know Jim Nagy over the course of the week said, you're too low on him. Put him in your first round mocks. I hand up. I was too low on him. That was a very, very impressive performance. And again, I think he's an edge. If you're calling him DT, I think that body type, I want bull rushing offensive tackles. There's still. So stock down. There's really only one guy who I would call stock down, and it's hard to even really knock him too much. And it's Javon Solomon, the Troy edge, who going in, I wasn't calling, anything like top 75 player whatsoever. He was always a nice late round flyer type of guy. If he's there in the 4th, maybe he can offer some pass rushing upside because he's, led the FBS in sacks this last year, 16 sacks, production off the charts. I loved his frame. I loved what he weighed in at. So he's 6'1", but he has a 6'8" wingspan and 10 and 5/8-inch hands. So the guy's built, that again, low to the earth with long arms. That's a good build for any edge rusher. Only 247 pounds. And I did think he really struggled in the run game enough that I'm not throwing him out in the run game anytime soon at the NFL level. He's going to be a DPR early on in his career, if ever a full-time player. But what I didn't love was that the best reps that he had over the course of the week were inside moves. And that's fine. Just high-end offensive tackles don't give you the inside moves. I thought he struggled to get to the edge and win the edge. His explosiveness wasn't what I thought. It wasn't what I had hoped when you see a sub 250-pound rusher. That guy better have some juice to win at the NFL level. And I'm not sure I saw that. And just kind of a ho-hum week in the one-on-ones as a pass rusher. So may still just be that day 3 flyer type. Obviously a big leap in competition against better tackles that he really hasn't seen coming from Troy. But I thought he could have played his way into that 3rd, 2nd round type of conversation. Did not see it over the course of the week. All right, some other bigger names that I don't think are stock up nor stock down. Latu. Obviously, he came in with 32.5-inch arms. Shorter than you'd like. With how he wins, I'm not sure it necessarily matters that much. Obviously, if he had 35-inch arms, that guy's a top 10 pick. But, the good Lord only giveth so much. So Latu, his ability to combo moves is off the charts. It's just so fast how one move gets shut down and boom, he's on to his next. And is just going to be a handful for whoever tries to block him. Very reminiscent of, like an Aiden Hutchinson in that regard, who Aiden Hutchinson, short arms, similar size arms. It doesn't matter because he's throwing them left and right, and they just keep coming. And that's allowed to a lot too. So still going to be behind him. Thought he was fine over the course of the week. Austin Booker. Now, he didn't do anything in the one-on-ones to really put himself necessarily like as a riser. He didn't dominate by any means, but watching him up close, this guy's the real deal physically. The Kansas edge. 6'4", 240, 34-inch arms. I would have liked him to come a little bit heavier, but I think what I said on the preview pod was just like, he's not there yet physically. Like, we know that. He came out early as a third-year player, and I was like, that didn't make sense because on tape, he was not strong enough. And so 240, like, again, I'd rather he comes in the weight he actually is and doesn't put on a bunch of bad weights. That's what he did. He's still not there from a strength perspective, but he's just seeing him up close. The burst, the twitch is just special. He's a guy I'm going to buy into. Probably going to end up with him as a top 50 player. Even again, if he didn't necessarily dominate, had some good reps for sure. Didn't dominate by any means to really put himself into a first round conversation. But those traits I'm betting on, especially for a younger guy. If he was a 6-year guy coming out, 5th-year guy, different conversation. But for him to still be young, inexperienced with those traits, yeah, I'll bet on that. Last one, who's kind of a big name, who I thought was just fine, was Chris Braswell, Alabama edge. Flashed as a bull rusher, edge bender. That's his game. Had some good reps in that regard. Don't think he showed anything, though, that he didn't put on tape at Alabama. There was no bag of tricks that, maybe Nick Saban wasn't allowing him to use necessarily. And with sub 33-inch arms, probably not ideal for the type of rusher he's going to be. I think, while I'm not saying he did anything to knock his stock down, I almost think the measurables and what other guys did, I think I'm going to have Austin Booker higher. I think I'm going to have Darius Robinson higher. And I think I'm going to have Marshawn Nealon higher after this week. So there's your edge clash. There's your trenches. Back 7 on defense tomorrow. Hope you guys are enjoying these breakdowns. That was your stock report on today's Renner Ranks, part of the Lockdown Podcast Network. Your team every darn day.